I love watching attendees roll in. What's up, guys? How's it going? Pulled a sneaky on you. Usually we started right at the clock. This time we're like, you know what? We're gonna let people roll in early.
We're at 10.
Is everybody doing it?
Yeah.
Well, I love watching that number go up.
I do too. It's like every time I do that and like it gets like bigger, I get like, I'm nervous. I'm gonna slide that presenter view out of it. So I'm gonna pretend it gets 3 people.
I think they can see us. You could give a wave.
She's like, hello. We need like lobby music. Is that a thing? Do we have just like smooth jazz going on until we start? Maybe Japanese vapor funk. I don't know. I'll come up with some thoughts.
Some good music for next time. Give it a minute or two. We're sitting around 21, 22, 23. So the numbers keep going up. Looks good. All right. I know people are still coming in. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on the globe. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mariella Towers. I'm the VP of Marketing for CloudRadial. And I'm going to introduce your 2 panelists today for our webinar to talk about scheduling with TimeZest, how the integration works with CloudRadial, and how all of it comes together to improve client engagement. I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Christian, who will get us started. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Mariella. My name is Christian Johns. I'm the community manager here with TimeZest. Definitely stoked and enthused to spend a little time with Ricky here today to show you our CSA solutions, customer automation solutions, pardon me. Go ahead and share my screen real quick. You know, we have really good synergies with CloudRadial because we pretty much, while we do different things and have different, you know, core skills or core proficiencies, we're very much alike in that we are guided self-service solutions, right? So we make certain processes and certain workflows for the day-to-day ITSP more efficient by putting forward options to clients, whether it be scheduling automation and availability options, or, you know, client self-service, much in line with what CloudRadial does. Again, we're giving you back time with both solutions, both, you know, in a standalone capacity, but as we'll show you here today, when the 2 solutions are paired together, there's even greater benefit, again, for making you and your team more efficient in doing your day-to-day and delivering service and engineering and projects, as well as making your clients' lives and working with you that much more straightforward and direct. So, you know, like I was saying, you know, we both drive CSAT in that we're making the client inclusive to the process. CloudRadial could be, you know, scheduling time through TimeZest, you know, provisioning, a whole host of, you know, deliverables that Ricky will break down. TimeZest is, you know, solely focused on workflow and scheduling automation. And again, as we go through a couple of slides here, give you a good sense as to how we're going to make your time a little bit more efficient and straightforward by giving you back time wasted on scheduling client appointments while increasing your satisfaction, you know, to your clients. In general, top 3 challenges for MSPs that I consistently hear, out and about on the road. I'm just coming off a 3-week swing of events. It's been pretty static, coming out of the pandemic and to and through 2022. Better than me, labor costs, are definitely creating profitability pressure and margin compression for MSPs. MSPs, this is always true, right? So, indifferent to any particular market perspective or market climate, MSPs must work fast and maximize efficiency, right? That's always true of what you do day in and day out. It's even truer and more critical here in 2022 as we're all up against the same, labor cost challenges and margin compression challenges. You can close those gaps by getting more efficient through tools like CloudRadial and TimeZest, as we'll see. And again, goes without saying, always in play for the MSP or the ITSP. Every efficiency counts. And as I'll show you with TimeZest, our ability to automate scheduling as opposed to going back and forth and playing scheduling ping pong, with your clients, which has pretty much been the standard de facto, scheduling process for most MSPs, at least since I entered the MSP channel in 2010. I always like to shine a light on or ask, members of your peer groups or, MSPs in general, what in your processes or workflows in 2022 is the same as it was in 2010? And it's a loaded question. Nobody's stack, nobody's processes, nobody's workflows looks exactly the same, as 2010. And I would dare to venture, that those considerations and those components have been reinvented and evolved many times over. The one thing that has not changed that we find, consistently, and why we decided we had a great solution to bring to market, was scheduling. That is one process, for most MSPs, both help desk or any real, component of your practice, that's remained static, for the better part of my decade, working on the vendor side and working with you all, over the last decade or so. So what kind of shine a light on that, but I'll speak to it a little bit more. Traditional scheduling methods, since the advent has, typically been phone calls, emails, voicemail exchanges. This scenario all too well. You have many hooks or traps, for lack of a better term, for your clients to raise their hands, to engage, for the services that they contract you for, whether that's emailing help at or, support at, them picking up the phone. There's a whole host of ways where they can bring, their need or, to your attention. More often than not, when a ticket hits your board, the first step would be to pick up the phone and see, when you might be able to align a connection with the client to get in there, and remediate what they've brought to your attention. That could be email based, correlated off the phone calls. It could be voicemail exchanges. And as you know, it just doesn't really align to the efficiency that you need or the satisfaction that your clients want, when getting their, technical issues remediated from their MSP or ITSP. Ticket hits your board, whether a service coordinator or a dispatcher picks it up. First thing they do, they're going to do some light triage. And just want to point out, TimeZest is, wholeheartedly supports, white glove service and support responses. So if it's your process to put the phone call in, we're not anti-phone call. Continue to do that. The reality is, more often than not, that phone call doesn't go anywhere, or more typically is the first volley, in a time waste back and forth between you and your clients. You pick up the phone call, you speak to the ticket, you speak to the client, you leave your, callback credentials. They're in 2 hours of internal meetings. They're finally wrap those up. They hit their desk, they see your voicemail or email. They go back to the tech. That tech is now on an escalation call. There's no other techs, to jump in and address, the situation at hand. And it just goes back and forth. Sometimes it gets pushed a day out, gets pushed 2 days out. As I show you and walk you through our solution real quick, we're going to cut into that considerably. New process with TimeZest. You're going to select the resource you're attempting to schedule. You're going to marry it to the applicable appointment type based on the information you have on the situation at hand. You click on client to schedule, and there's a multitude of ways to do that, which I'll show you. But I'm actually going to take you through the example of scheduling out of a ConnectWise managed service ticket. Once we do that real-time lookup and ascertain the availability of that resource you're attempting to schedule, that's it for the scheduling process. It's not a running punch list or a running list of tickets where you're putting admin time just following up to get the connection. So you take 3 minutes to fix the problem. Many MSPs time and time again will tell me, we'll do some assessment, maybe new training hire, new tech hire, whatever the consideration is. We'll cherry pick some tickets. We'll kind of, look into their DNA and assess, the life cycle or journey of that ticket for whatever the metrics or the consideration is. And people will tell me, it took us 2 days of time entries going back and forth, exchanging voicemails, emails, phone calls, the whole lot, just to get that connection. And then it took our tech, all 4.5 minutes to go ahead and remediate that issue. So we cut into that considerably. I would assume the vast majority of our attendees on the call here today have some sort of optics into that dreaded waiting on client status, or, however you name it, whatever the nomenclature is. As we're told time and time again, and, it is validated for our solution, we put a pin right in that and drain that considerably. So, many MSPs time and again will tell us that number was static, maybe from the inception of our practice or whatever the consideration is there. Once we implemented TimeZest, got it rocking and rolling, dialed into settings, and had your appointment types perform, administratively in the capacity that we needed them to perform, we just saw that dreaded waiting on client status or ticket category drain considerably. And correlated to that, the call volume and the email volume decreases significantly as well. So, when people know when they're going to meet, with that tech, with that engineer, with their VCIO, it was a 30-second process. They told me to click on a link. I clicked on the link. I reviewed the resources availability, married it to mine, sent it back to my tech or my support professional. We confirmed it. There's no black and white area. So again, the call volume, when's the tech going to follow up with me? When are you going to get to me? The sky is falling. Oh my God, terrible things are happening. That would decrease significantly as well. All right, so I'm not going to be able to get through all use cases today. This first bucket, coordinating time with clients or service or project tickets, will align with the example that I show you through. I'm not going to do a full-blown demonstration. I wouldn't dare. Just going to give you, a quick snippet and overview of how easy and straightforward the process is. But that example will be, a service ticket example. I think it's got the most, resonates immediate to what we're doing. So we'll lead there, but also keep in mind, we have the availability to schedule teams. Doesn't necessarily need to be a support team or service delivery. Could be a team of account manager, a team of VCIOs, a team of senior project managers. But we do give you the availability to take individual resources, of which you can certainly schedule in a standalone capacity, and group them into teams. Team consideration could be tier 1, tier 2 techs, could be a team or a pod, put together and formulated for expertise within a certain technology. So if you have Microsoft Office 365 specialist team or Sonic Wall Firewall specialist team, you could build those teams out accordingly and do some light automated dispatching, based off that team scheduling functionality. Executive and sales, we do require that either ConnectWise Manage or Autotask is in place to be a TimeZest partner. We really are trying to be and are to a certain extent, the scheduling automation solution of choice for, your peer group and this industry. I go there because, early in our tenure, as we got going, we would have really good demonstrations, really, really good buy-in and good solid, feedback from potential clients that would say, yeah, we want to move forward with the service team. We're going to buy X number of licenses, but, the C-suite, sales, leadership, account management, we're going to stay on Calendly or maybe Microsoft bookings. So we do integrate to Office 365, but I just want to disclaim that's not in a standalone capacity. The PSA definitely needs to be in play. That being said, for those team members that don't go anywhere near a ticket, couldn't even log into ConnectWise or Autotask if you put them on the spot, who live exclusively out of their personal calendars, we do have a solution there. So we have married both sides of the houses, and regardless if you're ticket oriented or you wouldn't even be able to point a ticket out if somebody put you on the spot, we will have the same solution or the availability to give you the same solution for all team members. QBR is account management. Fun fact, I've worked in the MSP channel for 13 plus years on the vendor side, with one exception in the middle of the last decade. I did go work for an MSP in Midtown Manhattan, had about 40 clients, about 2 million in MRR, annually, and I had as many days of the quarter I had to pull off a QBR. As I'm sure a lot of people can attest on the call, very akin to herding cats. With our solution, we streamline and automate that process as well. Not going to get into it today, but Ricky is going to shine a great, light on our schedulable URLs. I'll wait till we get there, but just keep in mind, you do have the availability to take those URLs and load them up in your PSA workflows. So if you wanted to automate that process, through the workflow engine within ConnectWise, have those emails automated out on a QBR cadence of your selection, you can fold in the scheduling component to it as well. All the settings will be guided. It's not a free for all. It's not the Wild West. You would set up that URL to schedule QBRs the way you need those QBRs scheduled. And I think I just touched on this, so not to be too redundant, but we do, again, have the availability to work with your PSA workflows. So, an alternate example of that would be, I'd assume the vast majority, of our attendees have some sort of email extension that, generates tickets, gets it on your board, and gets the response, certainly in action. Help ad, support ad, hey, we've received your ticket. You've been assigned this ticket number, verbiage. If you did want to, go the extra step at that, juncture of your service delivery and your response, you could put one of our schedulable URLs in there and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Client, if you'd like to schedule time with whichever resource, you wouldn't word it that way, of course, but, resource X, here's the scheduling link. And again, no phone call, no email, no voicemail exchanges. Something hit your client's desk, they have an issue, they're known and trained to, email help at or support at. By then taking that proactive hand raising, you could get as far as, having a confirmed appointment in your two respective calendars, if you'd like to plug us into those workflows. Just, a quick fun fact, these numbers are probably increased. There's a little time to this. I've been on the road as of late, but at the last benchmark, 58% of the 300,000 plus scheduled meetings we've automated for MSPs were scheduled with end clients within 1 hour of the MSP or ITSP sending the TimeZest automated scheduling link. So would love to see that be 30 seconds. But, many people time and time again, within your peer group will come back to me and tell me, I'll take an hour. I'll take confirmed appointments, within an hour, as opposed to, 6 to 8 hours per tech per month, maybe even 10 or 12 hours per month. Just trying to align windows, to connect with the client and deliver the, the world-class, best-in-class support that they contracted for. A little ahead of myself there. Just going to switch over to ConnectWise and TimeZest real quick. I can't stress enough, we, additionally integrate to data Autotask. So very akin to what you'll see here. There's no variance in the functional delivery. Obviously, the UI is different. They're two, different platforms, but in Autotask, much like you'll see here, with the ConnectWise Manage, we do have the availability to schedule in ticket. And to speak to licensing considerations there, when you set up your handshake to your, potentially set up your handshake to your respective PSA, we will pull over all of your licensed members. That doesn't mean that, there's a 1-to-1 ratio from a licensing perspective. Within TimeZest, you'll elect, which of your team members and resources you will, light up per se for a TimeZest license. And the general rule of thumb is anybody being scheduled through the tool. So anybody that when you click on Ask Client to Schedule, we're performing a real-time availability lookup against the PSA calendar and Outlook if, they're on Outlook in real time. Anybody, in the process of that real-time lookup is who would need to be scheduled. So I just point that out. If you have dispatchers, or service coordinators, team leads who are never scheduled, they're just for all intents and purposes, playing air traffic control or getting everyone where they need to be, both internally and client alike, they wouldn't need a license. Everybody will have access through the pod or the widget within the Manage or the Autotask ticket. So they'd be good to go. They have access to TimeZest and they can schedule either their individual contributor teammates, or as we'll see here, any X number of potential teams you'll build out and configure. So quick example, going to keep it short, sweet, and to the point. I'll try at least. A little bit of a struggle for me. But we have a basic ticket here, right? like I spoke to earlier, many different avenues your clients can open tickets, with your team and your help desk. Just very basic 101. I'm sure everybody here on the call, unfortunately, sees this screen when you close your eyes at night. I know I do, but company contact, straightforward, plain vanilla. We've routed this to our reactive support board. So I will point out that you can work within TimeZest or configure TimeZest to work with any of your boards, all of them, one of them, you would certainly determine that. This one's going to run and route through our reactive support board. We have a status of need to schedule, type is incident, and subtype is printer or scanner. Going to go ahead and choose my resource that I want to schedule on this I Can't Print ticket. I'm going to go with Mr. Lucas Phibb. Like I said earlier, you do have the availability to configure teams or pods. To speak to that, we have two dispatching logics, if you will, that you could throw behind those teams. They're a straight round robin cadence, so we'll just peck right through the order and cadence of that configured team, or we will do maximum availability. So if you had a help desk team tier 1 comprised of 5 or so techs, and those, you wanted to just schedule those techs with utilization considerations, you'd select, help desk team tier 1. When you click on Ask Client to Schedule, TimeZest is automating the lookup of the PSA calendar and then additionally the Outlook calendar. But we're going to go with an individual example here. Certainly follow up if you want to see the team scheduling a little bit more in depth. I can't print, right? It's a lot of information for me to go off of. If this were a live ticket, and if I got a 3-word summary in the ticket submission, invariably, I'm going to need to go ahead and connect with the client, get a little bit more color, and see what we're up against. So I'll do a remote access to PC session. I'm going to click on Ask Client to Schedule in a second, but just keep in mind, this ties in very well with how, our handshake performs with CloudRadial. You could generate the scheduling URL on the fly as well. So if I selected that from the dropdown, copied it, I could drop that in an email. I could drop that on my website. I could drop that in a CloudRadial, client-facing self-service template as well. And Ricky's going to do a good job of walking you through that. But for this one, I'm just going to click on Ask Client to Schedule. We've done that real-time lookup, against Lucas Phibb's ConnectWise Manage calendar, in addition to Lucas's Office 365 calendar in real time. Hopefully Outlook plays well today. So
this is always the worst part of the webinar, going like, come on delivery, come on delivery.
Here we go. Wow, that's not bad. My kids are not running 46 screens simultaneously upstairs. Client experience, again, based on your service coordinator, your dispatcher, or even the individual resource themselves, have now sent out that real-time availability for the resource. Client's going to receive the email here. They're going to click on choose a time based on that real-time availability lookup. Here's what's in front of me. I'm the client. I see there is availability today here on the 18th. It's 12:22 here in New York, Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to pounce on that 2 p.m. Appointment. So I've now selected that. We do give you the availability to take in next contact number. So, just another deliverable per se to ensure that this meeting, doesn't get delayed and goes off to spec without a hitch. I have the direct line to the client on their stated and preferred contact number. When I click on confirm, we're going to schedule the appointment right off the bat. As the end user or the recipient of the scheduling request, I can reschedule or cancel that appointment, in the event I fast fingered something. But more typically, they go right back into their inbox. They get the confirmation email from TimeZest. It's going to break down from you, as the MSP certainly, but through TimeZest, they'll get a straight breakdown, ticket number, all the salient details there. More typically, they would reschedule or cancel off that confirmation email, but the real takeaway here is we're going to work within the framework of their calendaring system. Certainly the alert, associated alerts and notifications, again, ensuring that this meeting goes off without a hitch, as agreed to by both parties. And then that would go on both their Outlook calendar and then above and beyond that within their ConnectWise Manage calendar. So pretty straightforward. Again, there's some, administrative considerations here. It's not, the Wild West, not to belabor that point, but you will spend some time, certainly under the hood on an individual resource, on a team scheduling, and then additionally on a appointment type basis, dialing in those settings. prime example would be maybe an on-site call. Logistically and bandwidth wise, you can only do X number of those in a given time frame, right? So with that, you're going to have a minimum notice, probably 24 to 48 hours out if you're going on site. Maybe you're doing a new wipe and type, picking up old computers, fulfilling a Mac ticket, Mac request, whatever the case may be. You are going to dial it in. So you have buffer time, you have a minimum scheduling window. So somebody can't schedule you 5 minutes from when they want you. These things are dialed in considerably. A lot of the appointment types are elastic to most MSPs, remote access to PC session. I can't, think of a technical organization in 2022 that doesn't have some sort of appointment type to RMM, into the computer's network or their machine. Again, from a settings perspective, you are going to dial these in considerably, and it's going to give you peace of mind that we're not only solving the scheduling problem for you, but we're not creating more problems for you by way of the settings you like to move forward. Just to finish up real quick, going to refresh this ticket. Just going to see a few different things that happen based on that TimeZest driven scheduling round trip activity. First and foremost, going to point out we flipped status, right? So status flips initiates other work or other action items to put into play. We've flipped the status. It does say TimeZest scheduled. Obviously, it's a nice advertisement for TimeZest in the demo. We fully understand that your workflows and your statuses have probably been in play for years, so you could plug those in as well. If it's just scheduled or whatever the nomenclature might be, you would tell us upon setup what we're flipping to once we do our part and we do the round trip scheduling automation. But for here, it's going to stay TimeZest scheduled. We're going to drop that confirmed meeting that we just took on in the resources and meetings tab, much like you would currently, potentially in a manual fashion. That's all automated. That goes where it's supposed to be. There's an audit trail every step of the way. So this was pretty plain vanilla. It's a webinar example. However, if there was cancellations, if there were rescheduling, it's all going to stay static and native to that original ticket that was open. That's all going to be itemized and broken down as well in the resources and notes section. Not going to go into the dispatch portal, but just don't want to switch screens coming up on my time here. But as clear as day, rest assured, certainly will that meeting not only present in the resources and meeting tab within the ticket, that will persist and travel on to the dispatch portal as well. So that's it. I see some questions. Bear with me for 1 second. Get in there.
I was looking it over. I think you already answered the first one from Alex about Outlook.
Yeah, so Alex, absolutely. We're looking up in real time, and then based on individual work type or role within the company, you'll tell us which calendar the fruits of that labor is pointed to first. So never want to assume, but more often than not, for service, techs, engineers, service delivery, that's going to land first and foremost in the PSA calendar. Depending on your calendar sync and how that performs, those two streams will meet up on the back end. But if a C-level or leadership goes nowhere in your tickets, they live exclusively out of their Outlook calendar, you could potentially look both up simultaneously, but then again point the target towards the Outlook calendar, and then consistent with your PSA sync schedule. Not a little tongue-in-cheek there, not going to expand on that. Some people in the audience probably know about calendar syncing, but they will, in theory, meet up on the back end eventually. With our solution, again, simultaneously looking up both in real time and then pointing it to which calendar it goes to based on workflow. We cut into some calendar sync issues, but I promise not to say that we're the golden bullet there. Are we looking at adding the availability for the client to add an attendee at a scheduling time? I know it comes up. I don't have any traction or any Aaron, that is any substantive update there. I would have to take a look and maybe follow up with you and see where it's at on our roadmap, which we do make client facing. If you haven't already upvoted there, it's certainly there, and that's for any functionality that you bring to us. It's on a voting basis. So I know that one does come up. I can maybe follow up with you there offline. Alex, yes. So much like I know I ran with the manage example here that went to the resources and meetings tab. That's where, our confirmed appointments will end up on the data auto task side. And what happens when a resource is working another ticket and the requested time for TZ is inserted in the schedule? Yeah, Michael, I might want to follow up with you online and just get a little bit more color there. We're supposed to maybe go Q&A towards the back end of Ricky's part, but let me chew on that a little bit. Maybe we can pick that up on the back end for the Q&A session. Cool, Ricky, good?
No worries. I am good. I am well, even.
Excellent.
Let me share, but yeah, for sure. For more technical stuff and just general questions, we'll cover it, like promised. We're not going to just skirt it, but I'll do my quick spiel and we'll come back to it. So let me introduce myself and also share my screen so we have something to look at that's not my face. There we go. All right. Hey, I'm Ricky, the VP of Product Strategy here at CloudRadial. Basically, CloudRadial, in a nutshell, for those that don't already know, is a client portal at its very most obvious. What it really is to us, and what we're hoping that we can explain to you and hopefully reinforce here, is that it's a CSA, right? You're used to a PSA, you know that back and front, right? You know that that's the hub of operations for service, even for account management. It's just like where you live, where you do your stuff. Same concept, client facing. So what we're doing is we're trying to go for like a yin yang effect, where it's like the same place that, again, you'd want to trigger all these client facing automations and requests and information gathering in just as powerful a format as you would your PSA is what CloudRadial is doing. So what I want to focus on for the sake of this webinar, for the sake of relevancy, is if we're focusing on scheduling support, we're focusing on how to make it work for you, right? The key here is to take everything that Christian said and take it even one step further of like, what if the client could just do that on the first pass, right? You don't even have to give them the link. They could just get that immediately, right, from what they need. And that's what I'm coming to the table with. So I could go into a long spiel about all the stuff that CloudRadial does, but I won't, because we have lots of other webinars and other things to talk about that. I'm going to focus specifically on that service-facing aspect. So CloudRadial, generally speaking, is broken down into generally three parts. There's kind of like a intranet part, and that's like your applications, your knowledge base, your training. There's a lot of stuff like that that helps to make the client feel like they have their own portal, right? And that's really good for stickiness. And this is something that you would get CloudRadial, you provide to the client, and that's cool. There's a healthy component on ticketing, which again is what we're going to focus on. So both like more of like an incident, like problems, very straight to the point, right? They pick from a catalog, you get all the answer you need on the first pass, and boom, right? It's all, the forms are written in. CloudRadial is tied into your PSA. We support a whole bunch of them, which means that pretty much whatever you got, we're able to take the information in a structured way, send it over there, and that's a key component of how TimeZest is going to work with us. And that also comes into play specifically for this webinar. I'll be focusing on this section, which is hot because it's pretty, right? This is like where you'd want them to schedule support, or maybe again order stuff, or meet with an account manager. So we'll cover that. And then the latter part is with a client experience with the CSA. You got to consider that it's not just technical. It's not just the bookmarks and stuff. It goes deeper cut, right? You have to engage the intern in that company and in your client company just as much as you would the CEO. So we kind of dive deeper into more of like your compliance. So we start doing more stuff with like visibility into their infrastructure of like how they're doing security or productivity and so on and so forth, all the way down to like a planner. So for more like strategic conversations and like figuring out what we need to do. So again, we're not going to do a demo on every single section, but the gist is everything is in one package. So the client has a genuine experience. The client genuinely needs to go to one place to get stuff. And we work with as many tools as we can, and the list keeps going on to help make that seamless, right? It's about making that experience kind of perfectly fit in like a one-shot kill type thing. So when we focus on support, right, like I promised, we'll go back to this. The mentality here is, again, the way that you make scheduling work for you the best is that you try to stay out of it as much as possible, because you want your clients to engage and request and all that stuff. So ordinarily, how a CloudRadial forms without TimeZest is that you would be able to go, hey, I have an onboarding form, cool, right? I defined it, I could tweak it, I could do whatever. I have all the information I need. And then what happens with this form is it gets sent wherever you want. So again, depending on how your PSA is set up and what PSA you have, you might get more or less different options. This one specifically set up with ConnectWise, and my CloudRadial homies on the call probably already know this, but you have a lot of granular choices of where it goes, right? What board, what status, what priority, type, subtype, all that stuff. Because the issue or the idea really is that the client doesn't care about any of this, right? They just want to onboard a person. They want to order a laptop. They want to tell you that their printer is broken. And you want to not have to fish for information back and forth, just like what Christian was saying. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, gather all that information to your specs, right? You tell us what you want. So form building, pretty standard. But again, if you can slot it into the places that you want it to go, you know exactly where it's going. If you can do other stuff, like maybe you want to fire off some JSON webhooks, or you want to do some Power Automate to that, and you want to really kick it into high gear, you can do that, right? Because all of a sudden the client triggers it and you dictate what happens with it. So it's a really nice way to put it all in one place. The client goes there, they get the fastest time to resolution rather than the time to ticket submission. And that's what they really want, right? Clients really want their issues handled as fast as possible, even though the perception is getting help, being able to submit an email saying, help, my printer's broken fast, feels good. It doesn't result in you getting back to work fast. Like Christian was saying, the printer example, perfect. I can send an email in 2 seconds, back and forth scheduling, then I have to go fishing for information. That's hours for something that could be solved in like 4 minutes. So we're really based on eliminating that. Now, how TimeZest comes into that really, really smoothly here is when we get to the conversation of like, okay, well, what if it's not just a simple request that can be fulfilled really whenever? What if it's something that requires immediate attention? How do I tack that on? Like, sure, they can submit a ticket over to the PSA, and sure, a technician is going to get it, but then the technician, without TimeZest, would have to go back and go, cool, I got your issue. Do you want to schedule a call, right? It's like, is it a huge deal? No, but it could be even smoother. So for my examples with TimeZest, what I'm doing here is a couple of theoretical examples, right? You could set this up just as well here in what we do for our service ordering as you could here. Ultimately, these two things work the same way, even though they look different because they're intended for problems and ordering stuff. On the back end, they're identical. So even though you see the same forms, you come back and you see that exact same UI. So what that ultimately means is that whenever you decide what forms intent are, right? So again, I know this is going to be a problem form relating to a computer. I know this is going to be the phone one. I know this is going to be the printer one. I know this is going to be an onboarding a new user, whatever it may be. You have full capability to tell it what team does it go to, who needs to be scheduled for that. So what I'm doing in this example, right? We've got our service team example. When I go over here and I click on edit, you're going to see that what I'm doing is I can choose exactly where it goes. I can choose exactly how it looks routing wise, but I'm using CloudRadial's confirmation message option to plug in TimeZest. So ordinarily without TimeZest, you could put whatever you want in a confirmation, right? Thanks for submitting the ticket, or have you seen this form, right? Just a little self triage. But in the case of scheduling, we want to be able to facilitate that option. So what we're seeing here is that the TimeZest code has been plugged in, and the way that we do it is both, I mean, really simple, but also pretty clever, because TimeZest is plugged into the PSA just like we are. So the leg up that you get with TimeZest that you don't get with any other scheduling tool is that they know the ticket ID. We know the ticket ID. So I'll show you the article real quick, just flashing it on screen. Basically what happens is we have a really simple iframe that you can put into that confirmation. And then what you do is you take those links that Christian was talking about with the applicable team and you plug them in. So you see this link right here, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing in mine. If I go back and analyze that real quick under the hood, I have an iframe, I have my link to my service team, and I have a 30-minute link in here. In my TimeZest, I do it a little bit differently than Christian because I do it on the cloud-based one, but it's the same thing. I can go to my appointment types within TimeZest. I have either a team, which is a bundle of people, mixed availabilities. I have individual people. So what I did for that one is I took my service team, I took a 30-minute call with my service team, my round robins. I grabbed that and I went ahead and put that in CloudRadial. And the secret sauce, if we're getting technical, because I know people want to know how this works, is that this SR number right here is how CloudRadial and TimeZest work together. That's how we know what ticket ID is. That's how we know what ticket is in reference to. And that's the magic to it all. So what we do in CloudRadial is we put that in there. You have to replace that with our ticket ID token. Same, it's just calling to our ticket value. And then you've got a working thing. So why would I choose to do a webinar with a big error message saying this doesn't work? Well, because there's no ticket ID attached. So this is pretty normal, right? You're not going to have a confirmation for a thing working if there's no ticket ID attached, but I promise it works in motion and we're going to try it. So ultimately, again, for the end user experience, and I'll talk more about this in a moment once I'm done with the visualization, is that you want a client to be able to go, I got an issue, I want help right now, I got to go to my portal and I just got to get it. I don't want to deal with anything, I just want to get it on my time when I feel like it. I want to book time with the service team, so I'm going to go, hello, right? Cool. Now what's going to happen is when I hit submit, is going to happen in this order. CloudRadial goes to ConnectWise, CloudRadial gets the ConnectWise ticket, CloudRadial immediately feeds it. So it's TimeZest. TimeZest knows that ticket. TimeZest goes, I got the context of the ticket. I know what you're asking. I know who you are because you're logged into the portal. So I have everything I need to be able to service this call as efficiently as possible. So let's try it. So there goes the ticket. It'll take a sec because it has to do a double bounce compared to our usual single bounce. And then you're going to see the TimeZest scheduling dialog come up right here, right? Boom, same exact thing. Going, hey, here's the example of the service team. Access my PC anytime, exactly the same as Christian was showing. So real smooth, real easy, same exact thing. And again, it just works to take just one extra step out of that process to make it super, super nice for the client experience. And without getting too heavy on this, because obviously sky's the limit, in terms of what you can do with the teams, that's up to you, right? I've seen people do this, again, very, very clearly in need with some service stuff. You got your problems with your techs, your printers, your computers out, whatever, maybe like the more like I need stuff to do, for sure, the service link is going to work great. But also changing the perception of how a client portal and how a self-service thing can work is also really critical to kind of our philosophy as a CSA. So the example of going like, hey, I want to be able to book a time with my account manager, right? If you have a portal and you can put all your stuff in the portal, you can see your tickets, you can see your reports, you can see your forms, you can see your courses to take, you really have everything you need. So do I need to do a QBR with you every 3 months to tell you what's up? Or can I direct you to the portal and you can see most of it? And if I do need to do a QBR, and if I do want to meet with you, how easy is it to set that up? Well, TimeZest makes it super easy because same concept, right? I have my account manager booking this time, same thing, right? I just took my theoretical account manager, this bozo, and I basically grabbed the link and I threw it in there and same, right? If you look at the back end of the hood, it's the same exact thing. I just plugged in my code, but that variability turns into something super powerful because again, it makes it something that you don't have to keep track of. It kind of closes the loop on itself and everything's clean, right? The client goes in, they schedule the call from within the portal because we're hooked into the PSA. I can see the exact same information that they could. So it's all very transparent and very easy to see what's going on, right? So all of it is just available whenever they feel like it, which is the key to all of this. So that being said, I want to talk about the real strategy to it. There we go. Hello. I want to talk about the bigger picture of it, and I want to talk about how I think CloudRadial and TimeZest, but just in general, other than just the features we have, how we're working together to really improve that client experience and that perception in the first place. I'm going to bring up my slidey boys here. All right, so this is the biggest beef that we're looking to resolve, and I think that was a good example of one piece of it, right? But the problem that we always see is that, and it only seems to be getting worse, is that IT service providers, MSPs, MSSPs, anybody who has something to do technical with a client that has a client base, they do a lot of complex stuff. And the thing that sucks the worst is all that stuff typically is over the heads of most people that have to interact with you. And it looks like a lot of stuff on your end, and it looks like little to nothing on their end is really the beef, right? So here I have a bunch of examples of like, you've got your Office portal, you got ConnectWise, you've got the physical technology, you've got dashboards, you've got servers, you've got relationships to maintain. That's a lot of stuff. But 10% of it, 5% of it is actually client presentable, which is a bummer, right? Because that's where all the value is. Now, some MSPs choose to blow people out of the water. They like to just show them every report from every single tool. They make it visible, but then that doesn't really work either, right? Because that makes it so your Joe Schmo is just so overwhelmed with what you do, they lose sight of the big picture. So it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Don't show them anything, smooth, but there's no proof that you're doing your work. Show them everything, and I don't get it. So it's like, where do you land on that? So one of the things that our CEO, Jeff Ferris, always talks about is showing the product, right? That's the little line I have here at the bottom. All the product that you do is this, right? And much, much more. That's underselling it by a ton of miles. Is that an expression? Maybe. The guide is like, how do you show it? How do you scry all of this into something that actually works, right? And it actually shows them what you're doing. CloudRadial is, as much as I'd love to be like, it's the only answer, it's a piece of it, right? There's a lot of processes and intellectual property that you have to come up with it. But obviously, again, things like TimeZest, things like your office reporting, things like, again, your portal, all those have to come together in a client-facing way to make it work. So we really, really are super big on the concept of don't let your invoice be the only thing that demonstrates value. Like I said, your invoice of, I always use the example, like an atrocious, like $5,000 a month. Does that equal all of this? It's like, no, because then if people start piecemealing all that stuff together, they go, well, actually, that's only $2,000 of tools a month. Why is that 5,000? It's your IP, right? It's all the way that you present this. And it's the same way. It's your client experience. That's the way you can differentiate between a mature MSP and an immature MSP, or one that is just growing, right? And that value, that's what the CSA concept is meant to kind of grow. It's meant to take that maturity and go from like, okay, honestly, how do you deal with service? Are you efficient? Do you route stuff properly? Do you schedule properly? With account management, do you have those regular calls? Do you try to? Where do you land on that, right? And turn that into something that goes from that big kind of jumble into something that is clearly legible and clearly easy to navigate. Does it hit the mark 100% of the time? No. Every client's going to be different. Everybody's going to have little needs, but doing this in such a way that scales it, right? That you have a consistent way to offer client scheduling, you have a consistent way to offer clients visibility into the upcoming projects and stuff, is going to get you way, way further in your maturity with your clients than trying to piecemeal stuff together. That's really all this is. We talk a lot about engagement maturity, and that's something that we've been focusing on internally at CloudRadial a lot, trying to basically sum up why do any of this, right? Why not just piecemeal stuff? Because theoretically, you can do the same thing with a bunch of tools piecemeal together. But again, if you can't make the client the center focus of that, then you can't get the best benefits out of it, right? So this chart, I promise I won't take you to school and read it all out and stuff, but the whole point is that we know that people start off in different stages of their, again, service delivery, account management, VCIO stuff. There's various levels. It's pretty complex. But the gist is that the emerging MSP at the very bottom, the people who are starting out, it's kind of chaos. They're the ones that are worried about grabbing as many tools as possible, offering them as low as cost as possible to try to beat out the competition. When in reality, those tools coming together, I know it's very easy to get overwhelmed, but if you can thread them together in a way that makes sense, in a way that makes the client experience work for them, because in the end, the client's paying for all the stuff, right? That's what ends up getting you genuine progress in your maturity, right? So we kind of look at this model and we go like, hey, from chaos at the bottom to I have a bunch of stuff, I'm not quite sure how it works, to like, think about even this webinar, right? We took TimeZest, which is super powerful and super obvious as to why it's a thing, and you can make it a little bit better. And you can find another tool to make both of us better. And you can find another tool to make both of us three better, right? Or all of us three. And that's the kind of measure that we're kind of going for here. So the more you can do this, right, the faster your resolution times can be, right? Less time in tickets, your staff gets more insights, and so on and so forth. When you keep going up and up, in the end, it's very clear you might have the same stack in the end as you did at the beginning with the low cost. But the difference is if you can thread them together, if you can make sense of them, if you can explain them, and you can have something to show to the client, that's way more valuable. That's why it's higher margin. That's why it's turns you into more of an advisor, because you've eliminated all that chaos of having to stitch stuff together and show it and maintain it. You're letting it kind of work in its own little ecosystem. And that kind of takes you from, again, chaos to organization. So it's a very, very long journey for a lot of people, and they work towards it. But again, I think the first part is to objectively look at it, right? For focusing on what today's conversation is about, which is how do you make your scheduling work for you, right? Objective look at what are you doing now? Objective look at how long is it taking you, right? Not just, oh, one ticket took me 20 hours and one ticket took me 5. It's like, on average, take a good hard look at it and go, can I figure this out? Can this actually be worth it? And again, even if it can be worth it, how do you present that in a way that scales? How do you make sure that everyone's trained up on it? How do you make sure you offer it in a way, right? So that's where we come in, and I think we can do a lot of good together. And we have been so far. I'm very glad to be working with you. So I think I will end on this, and then we'll go to the Q&As. I'll talk about the promotion for CloudRadial and TimeZest partners. So we're doing one that if you're a TimeZest customer, I'll say for the CloudRadial part at least, you can get $100 off for the first 3 months of our professional plan, which is pretty sweet because that puts you at a nice low tier, and you can check out and see if it works for you and give it a shot for yourself. And then Christian, you may speak to that one if you know anything about it.
Yeah, so CloudRadial partners get their first TimeZest license for free, and that's in perpetuity. So it's not, it's not for the first 6 months, not for the first year. So yeah, we've had great success, I think, bilaterally with both promotions, above and beyond the strengths of how the solution complements one another. But yeah, as it reads, one free TimeZest license for all CloudRadial partners indefinitely.
Yeah, and then for info on both of those, you can reach out to Mariella, who started off this call, Mariella CloudRadial, and then for TimeZest, it will be Christian. And I think I had one question that I needed to answer for my technical. I'll get that out of the way, and then I think perhaps some TimeZestery is in order. But the question was, can the client not select a time and just enter the ticket? So let's see. So they can definitely enter the ticket because that's what actually happens in the first place. So if I go to like the account manager example that I didn't do, let's do that test. It'll for sure pop up the dialog. Now, I can tell you from firsthand experience, because this is a pop-in, there's no close or anything out of this, right? This is just a confirmation at the end. So there's nothing stopping them from closing the ticket or doing it. One would hope they do it, but there's nothing that forces them absolutely to go through with it. But if I actually do it, it goes, hey, cool, same exact screen. Yeah. Ta-da. So I guess the answer technically is there is a way that they could not do it. But again, what I would really hope that if they want to schedule it and they do it, they don't just go, eh.
I want to go back to Mike's question from earlier. What if a TimeZest scheduling event, comes to fruition while a tech is working on an alternate ticket? That tech is going to define their availability to be scheduled down to the half hour. So that would cut into that dynamic or that potential scenario considerably. And then per appointment type, there would be minimum notice as well. So, I'd be doing everybody a disservice to imply that there are tickets or scenarios or situations that, are all hands on deck and just basically a cluster. There's no way that we, can account for that, right? So there's going to be a scenario where somebody's scheduled for something and the sky, in fact, is actually falling. That is going to take some, remaneuvering of the deck chairs, for a lack of a better term. But, for standard day over day blocking and tackling, it's not going to come up as much because each of your individual resources licensed to be scheduled through TimeZest. Again, you're going to define availability down to the half hour. So if they do need to get pulled out of the rotation to go, put together an SOW for a new project for the account manager going into a QBR next week, they would put that in their calendar, whether that's a ticket, manual entry into the calendar. We would read if they were to be potentially scheduled through a link, through CloudRadial. If the service coordinator or the dispatcher went to schedule that resource, they would just come back unavailable. Not to belabor the point, but like I said earlier in this response, we can't account for everything. And better than Nay and Ricky and Mariella, you guys have seen everything. Your work is never over. There will be that one-off scenario now and again where it's just not going to play out to fruition. But for the more standard day over day, availability is going to be, we're going to come back with the exact availability that we read. So, when they light themselves up to be scheduled, we will adhere to. And then again, I'm working on ticket X. I can't get scheduled for this appointment type consistent with the defined, minimum scheduling notice for that appointment type. There's a few different ways you could skin it, but like I said, it's more of a subjective settings, perspective. And those are the exact settings that you'll dial in. So these scheduling automation links schedule you proficiently and not turn everything into a cluster. So, one thing I want to point out just in general for any existing TimeZest partners or anybody that, wants to take a look and evaluate our solution, we make customer success available to you with no caps. There's no additional cost for that. We are a true SaaS play. We need to earn your business month over month. And with that, we need to support you both from a training and a best practice perspective. We're not, an XDR solution or some next level, antivirus where it's going to be a 6 week to 6 month implementation. Our solution is fairly complex in that it's going to do exactly what it sets out to do for you. But we can, offer all you can eat onboarding, customer implementation and customer success, because you're going to hit the end of the road, right? Like we're going to revisit it periodically. You're going to create new appointment types. You're going to bring new resources in, and there might be a tweak required here or there, but it's not a nebulous onboarding. It's pretty straightforward. I dare to venture that anybody that's not currently using TimeZest on the call has used a non-MSP, a non-channel specific scheduling automation tool, the C word. Not to imply it's there's nothing above and beyond the setup consistent with other tools and getting them set up. You certainly need to address the PSA bits, but outside of that, it's pretty straightforward, and we'll potentially be with you every step along the way.
Right on. Yeah, I think I answered another one on my side. I don't know if we have anything else. If anyone has any other stuff, I guess now would be the time. Otherwise, I think we're running up on the hour. We have like 5 minutes or so.
How are we looking, Mary Ellen?
Looking great, guys. So if there aren't any other questions, just a quick reminder, we will be sending out the recording to everybody. We thank you for sticking with us for the whole hour. If you have other questions, you have my email address. Please feel free to forward them my way. Happy to get them to either Ricky or Christian and get them answers right back to you. So thanks for your time, guys. Thank you very much. It's been fun, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks once more.
See ya.